guys? Welcome to Tall Tales with Taco Bell. Listen, another great afternoon of fun and excitement. I am here with my friend CJ Heatley, the author of one of my favorite books, The Cutting Edge. And Forged in Steel, I cannot find my copy of that. This, though, was signed by my mom, autographed. She gave it to me in December of 1987. And as Heater has experienced, he signed it for me at our Top Gun days. Something that he has experienced through the years is the legacy of aviation brought forth through his photographs over the years. And I tell you what, there are many, many, many aviators like myself who sat there in college drooling over these photographs of beautiful aircraft, F-14s, F-5s, the whole nine yards, A-4s. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on, frankly, one of my idols, Heater Heatley. How are you?
I'm doing good. I hear it's very hot in Fort Worth.
Oh, dude, it's like Iraq, man. It was 108 yesterday. I told my wife, I'm not cutting the grass. It's just too damn hot. It is. There's some lady that put bread in her in a little bread tray, and she stuck it in her mailbox. And 40 minutes later, the bread was cooked. That's pretty damn hot.
Yeah.
How is it up in your neck of the woods? Good.
Typical Washington, muggy and humid and hot, but not hotter than you, not even close.
Yeah, it's smoking, man. But it varies through the years. And I work in an air-conditioned building that as soon as I walk in, my glasses will fog up because it's the humidity outside, and then you get into the AC, and it's not too bad working in the Sims. But I got you on. I asked you a long time ago to come on the podcast, and the reason I wanted you to join me was because you have the most varied career of anybody I know. I mean, not only did you fly F-14s, but in 77, you got picked to do constant peg, and you were out flying top secret missions, MiGs out in the desert with a 4477th. Holy crap. Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? I do one better for you there. Let's see.
I even designed that patch.
You did. You did
Yeah.
design it, and it's in the book. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
That is cool as hell, man. There's your constant peg stuff. All right, so I have a question. You got to sign NDAs and all this stuff. What did you tell Kay when you got selected for this? Did you tell her the truth? Hey, I'm flying this top secret program, these megs, or did you just go, hey, Kay, I'm out flying some stuff, and one day I'll be able to talk to you about it?
I was a Top Gun instructor for a year before I got selected. And then when I got selected, every month I would go to Nellis, which wouldn't get on Kay's radar at all because we go to Nellis to fight red flag and do all kinds of things. We're always going on debts. So it didn't hit her until 2 years in the Top Gun, and I was done with the class flying against the MiG. In other words, every class we'd go up to Nellis and do missions against both vehicles. And I would fly both vehicles against all the class. So that didn't get on the radar. But when we got orders to constant peg, which was 78,
Right.
Then we had to move to Las Vegas. And I did that full time every day. I mean, get up in the morning, get to the base at 6, get in either a twin engine Cessna and fly up to Tonopah, or a T-38 or an F-5, and then fly 4, 5, 6 MiG sorties during the day, and then come back and debrief everybody who's waiting. So you get back at 6:30, and now you're debriefing till almost 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, get home, and then do it all over again. So it was a full day of flying and debriefing. And the cover story was I was an aggressor.
Right.
So I joined the 64th, had a 64th uniform, 64th patch, had to go through the 64th syllabus, become an instructor. and I flew with them once or twice a week to maintain the cover. And they had a bad formation accident, killed a couple F5 drivers, which is an interesting story on its own because the guy was trying to stay safe the night before at the club. So he was drinking tonic water, and the tonic water had a lot of quinine in it. And they were flying formation in the goo in New Mexico, and boom, two smoking holes right next to each other. And they think he got vertigo from the quinine. And
Oh, I never heard of that.
so that was amazing. So the locker I got in the 64th was somebody who just got killed. And now I have an empty locker in the 65th, and I moved over to there. So I ended up being in both Aggressor squadrons and guys that had some bad luck. And so she could buy the cover story, although when the enlisted guys would come to the parties, they were all long hair, like some Navy SEALs. So they were totally civilianized, even though they were active duty Air Force. And that was their cover.
Well, because they lived out there, right? So they lived in town right next to.
They lived at home. I got to turn this off. They lived at home in Vegas. They drove up in tractor trailers, pickup trucks, sometimes private vehicles. We had a fleet of Cessnas. We'd take 10 guys in the back, fly up over the desert, and bring 30 guys up with the airplanes. And the other pilots would fly up in T-38s and F-5. So every day we basically took the Red Eagles to work. And there was places to stay. And you got to remember, when I got there, we were the very first 10 guys, 10 pilots. There was no tower built yet. They barely got the hangar. We got the MiGs over from the old place where I was flying all the Top Gun missions before we moved to Nellis. And then we were in a Jeep with a handheld radio. So the pilots who weren't flying were the tower operators in a Jeep halfway down the runway. And then we finally built a regular tower next to the runway, and we actually got some tower operators in there.
Now, did you guys have to do OPSEC in terms of when the airplanes could fly because of the satellite coverage and things like that?
Oh, yeah, like crazy. Sometimes you would literally shut down a MiG, which had air brakes, and coast downhill down the ramp toward the runway, and they'd be counting down on the satellite coverage, and you'd open the hangar door and taxi, you'd coast a MiG into the hangar, and then they'd shut the doors, and then you'd hear the warning, and then the satellites would go over and they wouldn't see you. So yeah, we had to work around that and keep good track of it. And in fact, back to the security and when did Kay figure it out, one of my Navy friends spun in and crashed, and I was the guy that had to go get him in the smoking hole. And so I picked up what I could and got it on the helo, and a chaplain met me, and we went back to Linda's house, and we told her that he crashed in an Aggressor airplane. I think we told her an A4 since it was a MiG-17 to maintain the cover. Real long story, and we're getting far away from UFOs, so I got to get you back on track. But me and the chaplain had to talk to Linda with two kids the same age as my two kids. Yeah. And of course, you know how those scenarios play out. It still gets me. So 26 years later, the Navy says we declassified the Red Eagles. They decommissioned them, and over a budget argument. And they said, we're going to give you a Navy admiral, I think a 3-star came with me, and you're going to tell her what really happened because it's declassified. And they said, do you know her? I said, yeah, we kept track. She's remarried, her kids are grown. So I got to fly to their house with the admiral, sit down, get them on Google Earth, show them the runway, show them Dogbone Lake, show them where we used to drive out in the Jeeps and be the tower operator, show them how we used to fly and play hide and go seek from the Russians. And I even showed them where he crashed and where I picked him up.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what a MiG-17 was or MiG-21. So you're on the computer showing them the where. And then I showed them all the airplanes and told them how important the mission was. And they had a lot of questions about their dad. And so, you know, I was able to fill in a lot of gaps. We went, I think it was 4.5 hours. And that the Admiral told me it was the most impressive thing he'd ever seen.
That's tough. Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, though.
There was something. But she didn't find out for 26 years. And it was only then that I was able to tell Kay. So she never knew. She knew something was going on because you don't have troops with long hair and you don't have the kind of hours I had.
Yeah.
And it was.
She's good. Great wife.
Yeah.
Good supporter. Didn't try to breach it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I titled this conversation, Conversations I Had in the Cafeteria, I Overheard in the Cafeteria at Area 51. Because when you and I were sitting there having breakfast that morning back in May in San Diego, I remember, you know what? This is a guy that actually spent time out in Area 51. And all this stuff is getting declassified nowadays about UFOs and different things. And you hear podcasts left and right. Dr. Greer was just on Sean Ryan, and he's talking about we have man-made vehicles, and then we also have extraterrestrial vehicles that they found in digs or, you know, Antarctica or wherever and brought these things back. But we've been able to mimic some of the anti-gravity devices. What was it like out in Area 51, and what can you tell us?
Well, if you got there by ground from the southwest side, it was like going through the dark side of the moon with all the nuclear test craters. And most of us, especially in the beginning before I got moved up there, would go to Vegas, and they had a special airliner that flew into, it's hard to say it, even though it's unclassified.
Well, I've seen it. I know what you're talking about. It's a white.
It makes me tingle just to say Groom Lake or Area 51 because we couldn't even acknowledge that. I mean, we called it the box because it was a box on the map.
Yeah.
I know it's declassified and people are writing about it, and you can Google it and see pictures of where we used to work and all of our hangars. I'm just amazed. But when you're secret for that long and you don't talk to anybody about it, you know, it's hard to break out even after all this time. So anyway, we're in a special place and everyone's civilianized, and you get on an airliner and nobody talks to each other really because everybody's in a different project. I mean, there's have blue and have this and have that on the TAC side, and the systems, Air Force Systems Command, but there was all sorts of other things going on. So no one wanted to say anything that would make them lose their job and get into a lot of trouble.
Okay, because you're not read into whatever project.
No, you're not read.
One guy's doing.
By the way, when they read you into things, they make it pretty dramatic. They'll say things like, "The vice president isn't read in on this one, so not even the vice president knows about this." Wow. And then they go on with a lot of scary stuff, and then they brief you in, and they only brief you in so that if you happen to see one or see it while you're there, they've got you because you signed your name on the program that you're not going to disclose that. Mm-hmm. And so with that kind of compartmentalization, you can understand there's not a lot of talk about work at the airplane or even the cafeteria. However, what kept coming up was things like Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. And you would hear these conversations. And as people got to know each other and trust each other more about, okay, I know what area you're working in, and I know what I can say and can't say. And sometimes me just being curious.
Yeah.
Find out there are 3 anti-gravity vehicles. They're supposedly hovering in a hangar. So of course, I take all my spare time searching high and low to try and find these things. Found no evidence of them whatsoever. And there were a lot of other things like that I tried to track down. Couldn't track anything
Well,
down.
do you have the access to be able to even get into that if you did find it?
Yeah, you would think even if I could get into the right hangar, you wouldn't get into the right compartment. But these things were supposedly pretty big, so I kept thinking, where would they be here?
I've
And
heard
then
other hangars built into the mountains out there.
no, it's on Groom Lake. It's nice and flat. It's like you're in a gigantic moon crater.
Hmm.
It was really neat. Nobody could see in unless they illegally snuck up and climbed to some of the mountaintops, and they tried to do that. And there would be stray airplanes coming in, and we'd have to go up and escort them in an F4 or F5 or T-38, and keep backing them out and getting them out of the area, following them to where they go, and have somebody meet them there and debrief them. So we've confiscated a lot of Air Force airplanes, and they had the crew fly back commercially, and they got someone else to get their airplane and fly it out of Nellis or there if they made a mistake of going in there. So it was pretty classified, which is why it took 26 years to declassify it.
That's amazing. So at your time there, did you ever come across anything? I mean, did you ever see anything
The
at
only
night?
thing was, and this was while I was still in San Diego at Top Gun, going up once every 5 or 6 weeks to do a couple, 3 days with the class.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in this hangar, and they made part of it a cafeteria, classic high school cafeteria like. And so there was a little lump in the concrete, on one visit. And then on my next visit, it's teepeed up and it's cracked all around. It's about this big as my hands. And the next visit I come up, the concrete separated like this, and there's a strange piece of metal coming up through. So you ask, and no one will say anything. And I came up the next time, and there were rumors that it was an airplane that had to be buried. There was a crash long ago. A lot of testing came out of there, especially with the SR-71. And so the last time I saw it, the concrete pieces were like that, and the fin was probably 8 inches out, and you could tell it was some exotic metal. And so I had my suspicions after Papa Bear and Mama Bear and Baby Bear. And then I went back the next time and I said, hey, what happened to that thing coming out the floor? And they said, oh, that was a YF-12. And, they fixed it and they rearranged everything. So the story was it crashed and the Soviet satellites were about to come over. And the best thing they could do was bulldoze it into the ground. And they didn't get it deep enough, and the earth shifting and who knows what else, all those nuclear explosions. No, that had to happen before. It couldn't have been that. So I don't know what it was, Taco, but something made the thing work its way up through the concrete like a root in a sidewalk. That's
Yeah, but
just what it was like.
the base of that concrete to support the building's got to be the pad's got to be pretty damn thick.
Yeah, you would think, but the pieces that were coming up weren't more than this thick on top of the fin. And so I just never gave it another thought. I thought, okay, they had to bury a YF-12, and I get that. Or maybe just the piece of the YF-12, not the whole airplane. Who knows?
Did you guys have a
I don't
time
know.
limitation on you had to be out of off the base by a certain time or anything like that? Because I always read where they fly at dusk. They would do the test at night.
No. Sometimes they would say, all right, we need you guys to put a helmet bag over your head and go in this room. And it would be a windowless room with a locked door. And then you'd hear engines and other things going on. We never put the helmet bag over our head, but that's what we were told. So, yeah, there were things going on that they would have to just make sure you didn't see. And vice versa. I'm sure a lot of them couldn't see what we were doing. A lot of programs there. So
That's all right. So
very interesting place to work.
I
And
bet.
super still, super quiet, literally tumbleweeds rolling across the sand lake, and typical high desert, 5,000 feet, and beautiful mountains surrounding the whole thing. And I knew it was special. And so at the time there, and when I was in Tonopah, I would just sit and tell myself, look around, listen, remember everything you're seeing, because this isn't going to happen again. And this is really special. And so I have a lot of pictures in my mind that I'll never forget. It was really gorgeous.
But it's
Peaceful.
not like you could have a camera out there at all.
Oh, yeah, no cell phones were invented in the mid 70s or late 70s either. And no cameras. You're in a camera, you're going to be making little rocks out of big rocks in Fort Leavenworth. Yeah.
That's why I got a chuckle of Top Gun when Tom Cruise gets on his motorcycle, leaves his hangar open, right? A $1 million Mustang and all his tools, just leaves it open, drives his motorcycle down the road through a dirt road, waves past the guards on this highly secure base, right? Just says, hey guys, and then cruises on, drives his motorcycle with rocks in the wheels, in the treads, through the ramp. Now he just fought everything into the hangar of this highly classified uh, SR-71, whatever they called that thing. And, to me, I was kind of like laughing. I'm going, first of all, he would get the anal probe at the gate by the guards every single time. Here's my ID and, mask up and the whole 9 yards. Then they'd have to do a FOD check. No way he could drive that motorcycle on there. But how was it?
Yeah, you're actually not right. You're right about everything, but you got to remember there's boundaries to the classified areas.
Uh,
So it's not like you're right next to Vegas and this is everybody in the world, and right here is top secret trigraph stuff, SEI. You're already in layers of security. So people do go in and out past guards that
oh,
they're
really?
used to seeing and you're used to seeing, and like, hey, Ader, yeah, so because there's no real other way to get there except the road past the gate or an airplane in.
Hmm.
And there's so many levels of security beyond that he could have easily gone from a secure place to another secure place on that little trip. It
Oh,
didn't look like a public road, but it's just a movie.
yeah, I
Look,
know it's Hollywood. It's Hollywood. It's just that kind of little stuff makes me laugh, as a military
oh
guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I always thought of spaceships as a pilot, 10,000 hours more or whatever in the air. I always wanted to be the guy that saw a UFO. Ever since I watched Project Blue Book as a kid, and they chased UFOs around, I wanted to be the guy to get a photograph of one. And then I started thinking, you too, you know,
Oh man, my whole life, yeah.
and then as more and more of this stuff is coming out, it started making me think, what if we've gone 110 years from the advent of aviation, pretty much, right? 115. And we've gone from a flimsy aircraft going a couple hundred yards to me jumping into a 787, 15 hours later, I'm in China. Or you in F-14 or F-18 or, all the airplanes that we have now. We've gone that far, and that's within 100 years. So what if in another 150, 200 years, they develop a mechanism, a ability to go back in time and go see Grandpa Heater flying this MiG in some secret base. And it comes back. If a UFO crashes, the little bodies could be, like AI. You're connected to it in a terminal so that you can move around and do stuff because the stuff that they are able to go out, and go from here to Mach 80 just is impossible for a human to survive. I don't know.
Well, you know about my two friends, which is, I think, what you want to talk about.
Yeah. Talk about that.
So they didn't need a time machine, man. I'll tell you about both of them. One is I became a pretty good friend, saw him every day for 6 months on the movie. He's part of the crew. And after he got to be pretty comfortable with me and pretty good friends, and he realized I was open to things, and I might have even brought it up, or he might have teased me, and all of your flying ever seen a UFO?
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of sensed there was a reason he asked me that. And it turned out he was abducted 7 times. So he had some interesting stories, but most of it was about being totally submissive, having everything happen, being probed and studied and everything else, and getting back huge lapses of time in his life, knowing that it would happen again. And by the way, when I tell my other friend this, his hair, when I'm in person with him, every time I tell him the story about the Top Gun guy, he gets goosebumps and his hair stands up. And then he starts getting goosebumps all over his body. And then on his back, he can hardly stand it, and his hair starts standing up. And
Wow.
He doesn't know if it's a defense mechanism or if it's conjuring up something in his past that I'll tell you about that happened. But that's the reaction he gets. And just the other day, I was talking to him on the phone to make sure I had my facts right from the stories. And he said, stop. I was 5 seconds into telling him a story about the abduction, and he couldn't. He said, I can't take it. And everything I just told you was happening to him, and he wanted me to stop. So I did. So anyway, we got this one guy who wouldn't go a lot further, didn't seek publicity, never told anybody, the public, about it or anything else. He just is resigned to the fact that they picked him and they're going to probe him throughout his life.
Why do you think he got picked? I mean, what was...
I
Did
have
he ever
no
get a
idea.
feeling of why he was
I have
special?
no idea, and neither does he, but it's enlightening to hear about this other couple. So the guy with the goosebumps that can't stand it, in 1982, he's in a townhouse development.
Mhm.
And he's in the second floor with his wife, and they're putting the kid down, 1.5 years, and he feels like a resonance, and he can't figure out what's going on. He's just kind of resonating. And then the walls kind of vibrating. So he looks out the window, and then, there's just townhouses everywhere out in the suburb. And he sees this giant object. And by giant, he knows what an aircraft carrier looks like.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was as big or bigger than an aircraft carrier. And it was circular but oblong, smooth all the way around. There were no angles, no divots, no nothing, except for 4 lights in the middle. And as he's looking at it, maybe 100 feet, high off the ground,
Mm-hmm.
barely above the trees in his neighborhood and above these 3-4 story townhouses. He sees that it's moving real slow. So it's cold. It's in Pennsylvania. It's near Lansdale, near where I grew up and where I played baseball all over there. And he grabs his 14-month-old Megan, and he and his wife go down. Says, "Come on out. We got to look at this." They end up outside in the cold winter of Pennsylvania without any jackets, and they were oblivious to it. And they're looking up at this gigantic thing. And I even asked him. I said, "Well, an aircraft carrier is 1,000 feet long. Are you talking like 40 townhouses wide? That's like 2-car garage townhouse."
Yeah.
You're saying that was that long? He goes, "At least that long, maybe more." And I said, "Well, what happened when you got down there?" And he goes, "We got underneath it and we're looking at it standing in the middle of the street. And the only reason we can see it is the upwellings of the light, the street lights and the house lights. So that's bouncing off the ground and it's only 100 feet above them. And it's massive." And they're looking at it, and the only way they can tell it's moving is the 4 lights that are in the middle. And I pinned him down on that too. He said maybe 2 townhouses wide for the lights. He could see them moving about as fast as a person can walk. So they're watching this, holding the baby, and it's going, maybe getting a little faster and maybe a slow jog, and it's going away. And then a neighbor comes out and says, "What are you guys looking at?" And they're like, "That." And so the neighbor comes out and looks, and by that time, it's far enough away that it looks like a pancake. So the neighbor had no appreciation for how massive it was, because it's like that, not like that.
Now it looks like a cloud out there, maybe.
Well, no, it was definitely a metallic object.
Huh.
And the person saw that, but the shape of it made them realize you assume things are 3D, and if you see something, it's like a giant globe or a ball, but it wasn't. It was shaped that way, but they didn't learn that it was thin. And thin's a relative term. It might be 40 feet deep and 1,000 feet long, but it was definitely much thinner than it was longer. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it went away. So he walks into the house, calls the cops, and says, "Has anyone noticed anything interesting tonight here at the blah, blah, blah?" And they said, "No. Do you want to report something?" And he goes, "Nope."
Nope.
And so he never told anyone about it. And it was him in 1998 that was in his room, and the kids, by now he had a couple of kids and his wife, were in another room, and they saw flashing lights coming out of Daddy's bedroom. So the kids go in to see what Daddy's fooling around with, and he's sleeping. But there's lights flying around the room, orbiting around him. I think most of them were white, but there were multicolored lights. And I asked her how big they were, because the kids said, Mom, come and look at this." So Mom comes up to the master bedroom, opens the door, sees her husband in bed, sees lights zipping around the room. And I said, "Like Tinkerbell lights?" And she said, "No, they were the size of baseballs, like a regular light bulb, but they were a ball, and it was a ball of light. It wasn't an energy source or a glass globe or anything like that. It was just light as far as she could tell, and it was going all around the room. And for some reason, she would not enter. She feels like she wasn't allowed, it wasn't supposed to, but it didn't occur to her to go in the room and wake him up. So she just stayed there, shut the door, and they all went back to bed. And when he woke up, the kids were upstairs, and they said, "Dad, what was all those lights last night?" He goes, "Lights? What are you talking about?" "The lights." So he goes downstairs to get his coffee and ask his wife, "What are the kids talking about?" And she said, "Oh yeah, you had lights in the room, just circling your bed, round and round." And he's like, "Why didn't you wake me up?" And I don't know. Never occurred to us to wake you up. So then he shares the dream he had. And the dream he had, he was in the kids' bedroom, and he was looking at the kids, and there were two 4.5-foot blue people with wide eyes and a nose that reminded him of a toucan. It was a big nose, and he used the word toucan, so which sounds more like a beak. But he said it was a nose, and they were blue. And they were in his dream, and they were interacting with his kids, and he was looking at them, and he couldn't make sense of it, and he thought nothing about it until his wife told him about the lights circling his bed in the room. So a couple of years later, he has a thing in his arm, and he fools with it, and after a couple of days, kind of like that thing coming out of the floor, a little piece of metal poked out. And when it poked out far enough to grab, he just grabbed it, and just like his wife at the door, threw it away. And he kicks himself to this day. Why wouldn't you save it? It was some weird exotic metal, didn't know what it was. And now he's putting two and two together, and he thinks it had something to do with that. So you're ready for the wife story?
Yeah.
Same couple. So she, and I talked to them, and they might talk to you about this. They're 30 plus years as elementary school teachers.
Right.
Salt of the earth. I mean, grounded, credible, reliable, responsible. I've known them for a long time. My baseball teammate. I mean, whole 9 yards. Tournaments together. Been to their house in Arizona. They've been here and all that stuff. So when I'm saying credible, I don't believe it 99.9%. I believe everything they told me 100% because I know it. And so she wakes up, and they both wake up together, and she's in a pink nightie, and she is covered in mud. There is mud everywhere. Back, front, shoulders, arms, legs. So they look in the bedroom, and there's no mud anywhere. So they go to the stairs, there's no mud. They go downstairs in the entryway, there's no mud. They can't backtrack where the mud came from. They open the door, their front lawn and their own stuff isn't muddy. She's covered in mud. So she has this vague feeling, kind of like my Top Gun friend, that something happened and you're half awake and it's half in a dream. You don't know whether to believe it or not, but you kind of know it happened. Is the way he feels about it, and he knows it's going to happen again. But she knew something happened, and what she thinks happened is they abducted her husband. And she went to go find him. And they interceded, and neither of them can explain where all the mud came from.
That's weird.
And that is one thing that is totally inexplicable that they tried to do all the forensics they could on and couldn't get anywhere. So that's yet another experience that couple has had.
Okay, so he gets abducted. Does he remember or have any feelings about what they wanted, what their intentions were? Did he feel
Neither
afraid?
the guy in Top Gun basically told me that it was monitoring and observation. He just felt like he was some guinea pig in a science experiment, that there wasn't all the kind of stuff you hear about. And he didn't have a lot of details. He couldn't describe what they looked like. Um, he just knows that he's got 6.5 hours here or 8 hours there that are missing, and other people confirmed he's missing. And then he comes back and he has all these memories about, being up there in a ship, getting examined on a
That
tape. And so that's the Top Gun friend.
like physically, your whole body disappears, gone, poof.
Oh yeah,
Not
he's
there's just
yeah yeah yeah.
conscious.
They take your body, um, and so um, with this couple, he says he's never seen them except for the two blue short people in as wide as a fire hydrant, um, in a dream. And that was the night the blue lights were going around, and that was in a dream. So of course he wonders, was it really a dream or did I see that?
Mhm.
Um, and now he just remembers it as a dream. So none of them ever told me what the extraterrestrial or whoever was doing this looks like, um, because it was only afterwards or in a dream that they conjured up these images.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I don't think I personally would like to be abducted, but it always makes you
Oh, look,
wonder
when
what are they
we were
doing?
growing up, I think they knew about two galaxies, us, Milky Way, and Andromeda, right?
Yeah,
Two galaxies. They didn't even know. They thought they had 100 million stars in them, And come to find out, there's over 2 billion stars in a galaxy, some much, much more.
yeah.
And a lot of the millions of bright lights we thought were out there, they're not stars. Each one of them is 2 to 5 billion stars. They're galaxies. So we know there's over 2 billion galaxies. Think how many there really are. That's just known. So when you start figuring out the number of planets that are in the Goldilocks zone for that many stars, and I haven't even figured that out, you'd have to go 2 billion times 2 billion and then figure out all the planets around each one of those stars. I mean, the odds that life are out there are off the charts. The
Sure.
question is, how do they get here, and how do they get here in time, and what do they
Right.
want, and why are they doing probes, and why doesn't somebody like me, who wants to see them, who's a professional with a camera, who's scanning hundreds of millions of cubic miles with my radar and instruments and eyeballs and cameras. When I took pictures of air to air, I'd always look to see if I just happened to catch a UFO in the background somewhere. Hundreds of thousands of slides, never once.
Well,
And then this guy goes out and sees the tic tac, and the
yeah,
other
I
one,
interviewed him.
it goes in the air, down in the water, and all these other things that are happening. And I wish I would have had a shot. I wish
Dave.
they'd take me, but it never happened.
So Dave Fravor, call sign Sex. He was a Marine, enlisted Marine, went Naval Academy, Top Gun grad, squadron CEO, and he's out there with his wingman. They take off and they go fly, looking to do an intercept with two Marine F-18s. When they get, hey, knock it off, real world, turn right, hitting 270, you guys gonna go look at something. And he's sitting there cruising along, and it's like 15 miles, 10 miles, 5 miles. What's the term for the closure? You're there, merge plot. And he's looking around like, where is this thing? He looks down, he sees what he thinks is a fuselage of a 737. He said it was about as big as a 737 in the water, with
Right.
water lapping up on it. And then what looked like little helicopters flying over it, but they were moving around erratically. And he goes, that doesn't, this helicopter thing doesn't look right. And he's got his wingman, and he's like, hey, do you see this? And she goes, yeah, I see that. What's up with that, skipper? And he goes, I don't know. I'm going to go down. You stay here. I'm going to go down and look at it. And as he started going down, he goes, that's when it felt like this thing that was sitting there hovering around the big object all of a sudden now had its bead on him. And as he's coming down, this thing came up, and they got into the circle. And he just says, I'm tired of this. His guy's in the back trying to get him. He's being jammed, and he can't lock him up. He can't get him on the flare. He can't do it. And Sex goes, screw this. And he cuts across the circle as they're sitting there doing this. He cuts across the circle, and as soon as he did and got up to it, the thing just went, gone. He goes, I've been behind airplanes. They go afterburner, and I'm slow. They just disappeared. This thing literally was gone. And the ship goes, hey, you won't believe this, but it went up to 80,000 feet, and now it's come back down over top of your original coordinates that you were supposed to meet up with the F-18s to do the dogfight intercept on. So now turn back left, go over to this one. He goes, we went back there, we couldn't see it. So that's one friend. Then I've got my old flight school instructor who got out of the Marine Corps, and he became a customs border guy. So he's flying, it's a twin engine, almost like a ATR type aircraft. And it has all the sensors, and they've got flares, and they've got operators in the back, and they're doing all their drug interdiction work. They were coming back over Puerto Rico, and he sees this light over the ocean, and this thing is hauling butt. It's just cruising along, and they start tracking it, and it flies right over the airport, and they notify the airport, hey, you got this airplane coming in from the ocean, and it's going to fly right through your traffic pattern. And so they stop any takeoffs, and this thing just cruises right across. So they start following it, and then it goes up, and it hits the ocean. I mean, like dives into the ocean, and they're got the flare, and they're still kind of going along at the same pace. When this comes out, it splits into two.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, it took off. I sent you, didn't I send you the links to the YouTube? It's something Puerto Rico UFO, and they leaked it. They leaked the video, and the customs guys were like, no, you can't release that stuff. And somebody on the crew put it on YouTube, and so it's cat's out of the bag now. But
and it
yeah,
shows it going in the tube.
yeah,
Wow.
it hits the water, and it's traveling underwater, so it's able to navigate between air and solid ocean. And it just went underwater, and then was going for about maybe quarter mile, and then popped back out. And when it popped back out, it split into two, and then they took off. So whether it rendezvoused with one underneath, and then they came up together and then split, or that individual one split into two, it's kind of interesting. And then you see the F-18s off the East Coast, and those guys they're like every day, daily intercepting these triangle-looking deals that are flying around.
Yeah.
And they get the video of that, So when Dave landed on the carrier, as they were leaving, the other crew going out and grab the airplanes was going to do another intercept. He's telling the story about what happened, and the NFO or the Wizzo in the other airplane goes, "Hey, skipper, I'm gonna get that thing," and he goes, "Yeah, right." And sure shit, he did. He was able to lock it up, and that's where the Tic Tac video came about, because that guy was able to lock it up on his camera manually. Pretty good, I heard. So yeah, it happens all the time. Now, we used to poo-poo people that claim they were abducted, UFOs. You're crazy. Airline pilots who saw them, or anybody that saw them while they're out flying, they never would admit it. Hey, I don't know what the hell that was, but I think we'll just keep that quiet. But now the truth is out there. I believe it's there. Now, I'm not a nutso. It's been proven. There's stuff that we can't explain, and there's probably stuff that we have, or we've reversed engineered, man-made, and we're out there doing our anti-gravity deals. It's just crazy. I wish, Dr. Greer has a deal. He was talking to Sean that it's another entire secretive government that would make the conspiracy theorists just go crazy. But they have their own Navy, they have their own Air Force, they got their own hit teams, they've got unlimited budgets, they have the ability to regenerate limbs, they can listen to a conversation halfway around the world instantaneously. They can shut things down. I mean, it's just an interesting concept.
Yeah, but have you ever thought that if we have that and access to that, then the Russians and the Chinese and other countries do? I mean, aliens wouldn't discriminate. They would crash land or be found all over the world. And so if we have that, then they do too. And if we have all that stuff and access to all that technology that you're talking about, why did we end up with an F-35 and they ended up with an Su-57? I mean, we should have leapfrogged centuries.
Sure.
So,
but then again, maybe that's.
Yeah, a cover program, a multi-$100 million cover program to hide this amazing technology. I don't think so. I think we would have used it, and we'd have it ready, and there'd be pilots test flying it, and there'd be a little Red Eagle operation going on somewhere with those things.
Well, you never know, man. They probably look at the guys that used to claim they were A-7 pilots, and they were actually going out there flying the stealth fighter, and that wasn't released, the confirmation of the stealth fighter, for years. So, or the B-2, the B-2s.
They were at the base we built.
Oh, were they? Did you ever see them when you were there?
Of course. Yeah.
But did you know about the project, or were you able to talk to anybody about it? Or you just saw that and go, that's a cool little jet?
They didn't brief me in. And when I was doing the 78 Top Gun stuff, and I was about to take off in a MiG-21, and another aircraft got into my view. It was taxiing on the ramp. And if you hadn't seen a stealth fighter before, especially one that was painted in a completely different color, and was a 2/3 size version because it was a prototype with T-38 engines, I think. They actually contacted me and said, taxi back in, shut down. So I taxied back in there. Come on, not your fault, but now we have to in-brief you. You have to sign your life away, and you will never, ever, ever say, as long as this is classified, what the heck you saw out there. And I'll tell you, at the time I was thinking, does that thing even fly? I mean, it didn't look like it could fly.
Yeah.
So that's how secret it was back in the late 70s. So obviously I knew about it, and I wasn't surprised when they start building all this infrastructure and big new hangars and taxiways and everything else on the north end of the runway. So we had ours on the south, they had theirs on the other side. They flew at night and we flew in the daytime. So it's a great combination, and everything is secure around the whole area. So
God,
we didn't fraternize. There wasn't a lot of that going on. They kept it separate, but that's how they worked it.
so you didn't actually accidentally spend the night out there one night and just kind of sit outside and smoke a cigarette outside the hangar and check out what was going on?
Well, one day we came in, and it was before we did what was that disaster in Iran called, where we flew in all those helos crashing into the 130.
Yeah. Not claw. What was that? Eagle claw?
Hmm?
Eagle claw?
Oh, that doesn't ring a bell. But anyway, they were practicing for at night, and the airplane they were practicing with had to land no lights whatsoever. Are you still there, by the way?
Yeah.
Can you put us both back up so I can see what you're doing? Thank you.
Oh, pick my
Otherwise, I
nose.
feel like I'm talking to myself, and I hate talking to myself anyway. So we get to work. All the runway markers, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
Right.
And some of the runway, they're all smashed. So we realize, I thought it was called desert something, but maybe not. Anyway, an airplane, I'm uncomfortable about talking about it. So an airplane came in, tried to land at night with no lights, with the very earliest night vision goggles, they were, and kind of landed, 30 feet right of what he wanted to do on center line, and just took out everything. And so after that, they got pretty strict about staying over or, hanging around doing things that didn't pertain to you. And so it made the deal with stealth a lot better. That was two separate units flying two different times of the day.
Interesting. It was Eagle Claw in 1980.
Ah, okay.
So it was.
That makes sense, because I moved there in 79 and flew there 79, 80, 81. So they were practicing for the thing there so they could land at night.
Really? They did the practice for that? Wow.
Yeah, but it was a big airplane, we'll just say. It wasn't the 130.
Wasn't it a C-130? Cargo
No.
airplane?
No, they could do that. They could do their mission, but there was other airplanes that needed to get everybody where they needed to go, and that airplane had to practice. But we're not here to talk about that.
Now you got me interested.
I know, yeah, it'd been better if it was a UFO and we couldn't explain it. There are a lot of interesting things. Here's just a 1-minute tidbit. We ended up with a lot of birds on that runway.
Right.
So, desert birds are flying all over the place. Ask Sully what happens with birds. So we're doing shotguns, we're doing noise, we're doing visual things, trying to keep MiGs from getting spotted. And nothing will keep the birds out. You scare them away from one, they go land on another place. For some reason, they like the runway better than the desert. I don't know if they were drinking water in between the little macadam things from the dew or what, but they were there. So we hire what do they call the guys with hawks? I think they have a name. So we hire this guy who has a bunch of hawks.
Yeah.
To clear the runway. But that's not the point. The point that I found fascinating, because I'm one of the Cessna drivers, holds 11 or 12, and twin engine Cessna, and that's how we get back and forth. So I'm flying some hawks up there and the guy, and
You got them in a cage,
Falconer.
little cages or something?
I think they're called Falconer. Yeah, we're going
Yes,
to 10.
falconer. Mhm.
Yeah. So um, they're all sitting on the headrests where passengers would normally be with this big leather hood on, right? And I'm flying at 1G like you normally like to keep passengers. I mean, you don't make passengers go like this.
Mhm.
They don't even know. They can sleep, they can read a book. They have no idea if you're in a turn. You do it, everything very smoothly. So all of these hooded Falcons that are sitting on the headrests of all these seats, I'm looking in the mirror, and every time I turn, they go the opposite. They always knew what was vertical.
Yeah.
I turn, and it's so funny to see 7 or 8 birds doing the same thing. And I mean, they didn't know what each other was doing. They had no idea what the horizon looked like.
Yeah.
And so they had some system that I don't know about that told them up was up.
Pretty good gyro.
But that was a segue you can edit out. I'm sorry about
No,
that.
not at all. So did the well, you know what here? Heater Megs. So
There
here
you go.
there were some of the Megs that you guys
Yeah.
flew. What is that? Heater what do they call them? Red 49, the MiG 23?
I was I was Bandit 8 with the Red Eagles. So you got a later model MiG on top. I flew the one with the pitot boom underneath.
Uh-huh.
Had a very interesting experience when that came unattached. And then a MiG 17 and looks like a MiG 15. And those are in the zoo at Fallon near the Crystal Palace where Top Gun is.
Oh, okay.
It's great to walk around there. Yeah. See those airplanes. And I imagine I should look into it, but I probably flew
All
some of
those
those.
airplanes too.
Yeah.
Well, you
Because
know,
they sent them out to museums and places like that when they killed the program.
and now think about it. You could buy an old Eastern Bloc MiG for $15,000.
And they
You know,
do.
with 2 spare engines, you know?
And they do. And they fly them all over the country. Yeah.
Yeah. I laid it out in Boise, Idaho, and there's some billionaire dude out there who has a SU 29. 29? Yeah. Yeah, he's got a 29 and he flies around the pattern. We came in and the guy landed. He was in the pattern as we were coming in. I was like, that's cool. That's beyond rich though, to have that thing.
Right.
You know, next, I've got to have you back. I want to talk about this. Look at that stud sitting there on the left next to Goose. Drink
Well,
a lot
let
of beer.
everyone know that those bottles are there because Tony Scott himself placed those bottles there as a measure of time. No bartender would leave them there, and I would never drink that many beers. But when Maverick and Charlie go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
this is the difference between when they left and when they come back. And right before they came back, he wanted to show that all this time elapsed. And I remember telling him, Tony, they're only gone for 3 or 4 minutes. I know the script, I knew the dialogue.
Yeah.
And he didn't care. He gave me that look like, you do your fighter pilot stuff and I'll do my movie stuff. And he put all those beers there to show that time had passed.
Uh-huh.
But I got to sit next to Kelly McGillis for 2 days in that club with my photo in the background and next to Tony Edwards, and we filmed that scene there.
Did you get to keep your photographs, the large ones in the background?
No, I don't know what became of them. I know that the San Diego Air and Space Museum did a whole wall, like 120 feet of photos like that, all rear projection slides, transparencies with lights behind it in gigantic black boxes. So
well, I love this.
I do not know what happened to that one. I would have liked to have kept it.
That painting is phenomenal. You want to talk about?
Yeah, well, yeah, but you got to wrap this up because
Yeah,
I think people are getting tired. Yeah, that's great. Go back and forth because they're different ones. Now go to the first, keep your eye on the glove right now, and now go to the painting. So
more of
what's
the
cool
Nomex.
is it's kind of like getting to Photoshop your iconic photograph that you were lucky enough to get in 1983.
Yeah.
And actually, I shot it, I think, in 82. It ended up in California Magazine in 83. Everybody knows the producers saw it, said that looks like Star Wars on Earth. That's our next movie. And they told me that personally, by the way, too, and as well as in a lot of interviews. But um, the airplanes didn't have the normal loadout. So I didn't have a winder on that side, and the airplanes didn't have two, and two. So had a modeler, a really good modeler, build a model for us with two, and two, and we had that in the studio. And I had him put two, and two on the aircraft. And I also see there's no winder there on my
Yeah.
right shoulder. And a lot
Got
of
it.
people think that's me, but it's my Rio.
Right.
And that's a Top Gun patch we added, which is cool. And the glove, go back and forth between the first one, now the second one.
Yeah,
So
it's a little darker.
yeah, it's in the shadow of the canopy bow.
Uh-huh.
So I never really liked that. So I said, go to the painting. I told Russ, let's take that canopy bow and make believe I traveled a little with the airplane. And now the sun puts the shadow in the Rio's lap. And now the hand is exposed.
Uh-huh.
But he didn't have anything to draw from. So I grabbed a wooden spatula, put it in my gloved hand on my back deck, got it at the right angle, and then I shot a picture of it and sent it to him. So the cool thing is in this painting, that's literally my glove and fingers and thumb that he used. And a lot of nice detail with the mask and all the fittings and fixtures. And there's a couple little things. I didn't want to go crazy, but go back to the other one, the original. I'll show you a couple little things. Not that one, the other one. Okay, see above my hand that awful reflection on the canopy between the airplane and my fist, or his.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now go back to the painting. So that was a tiny
Ah.
thing I thought was distracting, and I didn't like it, so we got rid of it. Back in
Wow.
the day, I would have photoshopped it out. No one would have ever saw it.
Yeah.
But you can see how accurate and authentic the picture is. Most people don't even know there's a difference. I mean, some people see the glove, but
Yeah. When they
Russ did a really good job. He was high fidelity to the painting. I mean,
yeah.
to the original photo.
Oh, that turned out fantastic. That was really cool meeting him too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, this has been good, dude. 100.
Yeah, I will touch on some other stuff next time.
All right. I can't thank you enough. Tell Kay I appreciate her letting me borrow you for an hour. And
Oh,
brother,
it's my dog you have to apologize to.
oh, that's why the one that you put
Coco's been
outside.
trying to get in ever since we started.
Yeah, I had to lock mine up downstairs. I'm upstairs in my office. I had to lock them downstairs in my bedroom on the other side because I get alerts on my phone when somebody comes up to the door and drops off a Amazon package, and they all will go crazy. But kind of fun.
I
Well,
thought people were commenting, but those are uh, emails to my wife on her
uh,
computer.
yeah, no, we taped this unfortunately because you got to
Oh,
go
that's
on a
right.
trip.
That's right. Thank
So
God.
we're
Yeah.
taping this, and I'm just gonna play it on a Tuesday in about 2 weeks from now because I've got a couple lined up already.
All
But
righty.
hey,
Great.
man, I
Great
can't thank you
seeing you,
enough.
Mitch.
You too, Heater. You take
Thank
care,
you
boss.
for making my first time relatively easy. Very first time.
This is your first podcast? How can that be?
I don't like the sound of my own voice. I
Uh, y-
feel weird about using first person pronoun in a long period of time, and I've avoided it. But now that I've known you a couple of years and we talk a lot, and you're such a good guy, and you know a lot of people that I know,
Yeah.
I figured, what the heck?
Dude, you're so relaxed. We could sit and bullshit for hours. You know, what is it? What's the old motto? Be humble, you cool fucker. What was that? That was a fighter pilot mantra out there at Red Eagles, right?
Well, the Red Eagles and the Aggressors, even on their coffee top cups, the first thing I noticed as a Top Gun instructor, every coffee cup said, "Be humble." And I thought, that's a weird thing to have out in public. It might be good for a secret society to say, look, don't be an arrogant son of a bitch and keep the stereotype going. You know, you guys are highly professional instructors, so be humble. But they put it out there in signs, plaques, coffee cups.
That's cool.
In Top Gun, you know, you obviously had to be credible, but there would never be a Top Gun instructor like Ice or Maverick. I mean, you don't want anyone that's arrogant or sarcastic or talk down to you. You've got to be approachable and accessible, and you have to be credible. So if you're not approachable, then what good is all the knowledge you have? It's all about teaching and learning.
Sure.
So in a way, Top Gun's mantra, besides good enough is never good enough, and then it switched to second place is dead last, and no points for second place. So it was always a relentless pursuit of perfection. So you had this culture of excellence, but it was always, they wanted you to be humble. Nobody ever used that word. Yeah. They wanted you to be approachable, so that people could learn from you. And so we had that in common with the Aggressors, even though they did it two different ways.
And did you end up with 2 tours at Top Gun? So you did initial end of the 70s up to about 80, 81. Then you did Red Eagles. Then you went back to Top Gun.
Yeah, you'd almost need another podcast. I had so many fit reps written during that time because, get this, I was always a Top Gun instructor from 77 to 81. When I went to Nellis in 89, I was a hybrid. So I was still in Top Gun, but I was assigned to the Aggressors as a cover and to the Red Eagles.
Okay.
So the Aggressor skipper was
he your reporting senior? He was the guy writing your fitness reports?
I had 2 Aggressor skippers in the 64th and 2 in the 65th. One of the Aggressor skippers ultimately became my skipper in the Red Eagles. He actually came up there after that crash, because just like when we have a carrier, bump in the night, that skipper's gone no matter if he was at fault or not. So our terrific skipper had to leave. They got the new guy in from the Aggressor squadron, and then they got another guy. So I had 3 Red Eagle skippers in the 2+ years I was there. And I had at least 2 Top Gun skippers and 4 Aggressor skippers in a 4-year period. And I flew airplanes for all of them and did the gun bets at Top Gun at El Centro every year, 80, 79, 80, 81. Best flying you could ever do, shooting a gun. Oh man, it was just every day, 2 times a day, counting how many holes there are in the banner.
Yeah. Well, here's a picture of you from Top Gun. That's your actual rack. I see Navy Com, second award. I don't know what the middle one is, and then you've got Navy Achievement. But did you ever get a award for your time with the Red Eagles, and you couldn't wear it because it was classified?
No,
No.
no,
Oh,
they don't do that. No, you get the award, they give you a vanilla write up, and you can wear it. I mean, it's the same medals. Everybody, it's not like there's a new medal they fished out, and that
yeah. No, no, no.
like,
But on
what's
the
that ribbon?
yeah,
There,
but on the award, they can't sit there and write, well, CJ flew 525 accident-free hours in a MiG-21 and 700 hours in the MiG-17 and 15 and did 3 dead stick landings, saving the aircraft and the taxpayers $500 million. So we're going to give him this meritorious service medal, but it's classified, you know.
no, all they have to do is say it was an F5 or an A4, just like just like we told the widow, you
Yeah,
know, it was an A4. So you do the same thing, and then you can write anything you want. It's not classified.
that's cool. All right. Well, more on that. More on that down the road. Thank you so much, man. I wish you were here. I gave you a coin when we were out there, right? Well, I gotta send you a coin and a thank you card. I can't thank you enough, brother.
Not to worry. Take
Well, listen,
care.
you
I'll
have a
be
good
better
one.
next time.
No, you were fantastic, man.
No,
Don't kill
I,
yourself.
I
Kay's
feel like
gonna
it was bad, but that's
No,
okay.
not at all. Kay's gonna listen to it and go, you know, that guy Mooch is making $1 million off his YouTube videos. Hey, honey, Heater, I think you need to start doing. Dude, I'd watch your podcast all day. You got a great voice. Don't undersell yourself.
Hey, I know Mooch, and Mooch wants to interview me, but as you know, I'm a little under the weather, and he's really, really big time. So after I get done with the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, I'm going to call up Mooch and say, okay,
You're ready.
let's
Hey,
do it. You've been asking, I'll do it. Go ask away.
yeah, you're like, all right, man. I had my breakthrough session with Taco. I'm comfortable. I'm good.
Yeah.
Hey, play with the little leagues. All right, brother. Well, listen, man. You have a good one. I will talk to you soon. Give Kay a hug for me.
Hey, you bet. You take care too.
Hoorah! Out here. Hey, folks. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. That was CJ Heatley, and one of my idols. I have many idols, and he is one. Unbeknownst to him, to go get your gold wings, you have to have dreams, and you have to stay inspired. And my mom was smart enough to buy that book at Christmas back in 1987. I graduated college in '88. Went to flight school in September of '88, and no, sorry, TBS August of '88, and then September of '89 started flight school, and so that was the whole genesis of my career. And I can't thank Keter enough. You guys have a great one. Adios, hasta luego, sa wiedersehen, tschüss, shishini, au revoir. Dobrigato gozamistano shinde kurasai, ciao, arrivederci, tashakur, assalamu alaikum. Do widzenia, das vidania. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Oh, which one should I do? I always ask. I'm going to do this one. You guys have a good one. Adios.